The Business of Cleaning, the podcast that brings cleaning industry expertise straight to your ears. We interview professionals from all over to bring our listeners knowledge of how to achieve success within their business. Season 1 is about change management and enabling you to both face and create change in all aspects of your company. We're talking management, HR, suppliers, and more. Let's sweep right into the episode. All right, so hello everybody. Today for the Business of Cleaning, we have Ron Segura, the president of Segura and Associates. And as you remember, my name is Haley with Janitorial Manager who hosts Business of Cleaning. So we're going to jump right in. And today we're going to talk about changing internal communications within your company. So Ron, if you would like to tell us a bit more about yourself, we'll start there.
Great. This is actually my entering into my 55th year in the cleaning industry. So in all my work history, it's always been related to janitorial, and I've worked in all segments of the industry. My company, Segura and Associates, has been, it was founded 19 years ago. And the original premise was to help contractors, medium to smaller size contractors, those who may need help and may have needed help in different aspects of their company, but couldn't afford to bring somebody that had the expertise on board. And that's the way it started, and it really went in a lot of other directions. So a lot of the things that I do, I deal with all the different segments of our industry. I could do some work for manufacturers. I could do consulting works for contractors, for in-house operations. And now what I've done is, because of the direction of our industry, I get involved in a lot of the new technologies. And so that when I go and I offer my service to a company, my services are to help them get to the next level, to help them address issues that they may be having, and always incorporating things that are new. And so a lot of what I do is educating the customer of a building service contractor. I could at one point be helping an organization in developing their RFP and heading their RFP team from developing the scope of work all the way to advising them on the selection of the person or organization that they would award the contract to. And then I work on the other side too. A lot of times I'll work with contractors who maybe are putting together a proposal on a project that may be a little bit bigger than they're used to, and then they'll call me in and I'll help them do that. I work with manufacturers over the years. They may have a piece of technology that's come out, and I'm able to provide them with some feedback and maybe even put a pilot program together. So there isn't any segment of the industry that I haven't at one time or am currently working with. And I started as a domestic consultant, but now I do a lot of international work. And then I try to get out as many articles as I can. During this COVID virus, it's been limited only because of time, but I usually like to publish 1 or 2 articles a month in a variety of different trade magazines. And those things could be on subjects of COVID virus. They could be on how to improve productivity, how to really put together a good customer satisfaction program. It could be on sales and marketing, so a variety of different things. So over the years, anything, I try to keep attuned to everything in our industry that's needed or anything that's new, and I like to keep up to date. So in the 50 years or 55 years that I've been in this industry, I do have to say that this is the most exciting time, because we've finally been able to reach a level of professionalism that we've deserved for a long time. We're not just the people that come in and maintain a building, empty trash and vacuum. Now, and particularly during this time of the COVID virus, we're really able to really demonstrate how knowledgeable we are in the art of cleaning and how it impacts people who occupy the buildings that are cleaned. And to be able to see all of the products that are now coming out that are geared towards disinfection, we're able to explain to customers the difference between cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting. And it really shows that we are a professional industry. So anyway, that's the 25-cent overview of Segura and Associates.
No, that's awesome. And it's great to hear that there's so much positivity coming from this recognition that's coming your way now. And also that there's truly no better person to ask for advice and for tips and things within the cleaning industry. So having you on in our first season is amazing. And thank you for being here.
Well, I appreciate the invitation. And I think that these types of resources for the industry are well needed and well received.
Yeah, we want to be able to provide that extra helping hand when it comes to the knowledge and advice and helping spread it. So I'm very glad when we can get great guests like you on to speak. So, but yeah, we're going to go ahead and I guess just jump a little bit more into the internal communication aspect and start to introduce this topic a little bit more, because obviously you've been around the industry a lot. You've seen all the ins and outs. And so one thing I know I'm interested in, and probably many of us right now as things are shifting and changing, is that internal communication, not just the communication with the customers, but the communication we have with our own teams and our own employees. And so just, I guess my question for you starting off is, what ways have you seen companies previously and maybe even still handling their internal communication? Like how has that typically been treated?
Well, it's, with COVID-19, nobody really expected this to have the impact that it has, not only in our businesses, but also in our lives. It's a whole different way of life. And so here's some of the things that, because of this COVID virus and how quickly it impacted our industry, sadly, there's a lot of companies that are just barely surviving. And it's not because of bad work, it's just because of companies shutting down and suspending service. And, if I could just regress a little bit, before this hit, one of the biggest things, one of the biggest issues that a lot of contractors had, and they still have now, but they had previous to this, was they couldn't find enough workers. It was hard to find employees. And so my suggestion always was to take care of the employees that you have and make them feel a part of the team. Employee retention is a big thing. Well, now you have COVID-19, and there were a number of layoffs in the industry. And so some of the things that have taken place, for instance, in a negative way, if a company did not have some form of internal communication process, and when we talk about that, we're talking about how do you get the message of the, for instance, direction that the company wants to go, or how do you share those home runs that are hit by the company? How do you share them with the frontline people? Now, if you didn't have that communication process in place before this, then it's going to be very difficult to maintain a communication process. So that's kind of the negative part. So I think one thing, if we've learned something, is that companies need to re-examine how they communicate the message, the direction that the company's going, some of the things that are very positive. Because you remember, the frontline workers, most of them work at night, and there's a disconnect. And so we need to always make sure that they understand that the work that they're doing enables the company to grow. And when the company grows, it means more opportunity for them. But along that way, we need to give them those shots of enthusiasm and excitement about what the company is doing. And the workers will respond to that. The frontline workers will. The supervision, they'll respond to that. So that's one thing that we really have learned, that there's value there. So what are some of the things that companies are doing? I had probably about a month ago, 2 months ago, I contacted some of my international people in my network, and I asked them what some of the things that they were doing. And it was interesting that they still have the same issues that contractors here have, how to get people and how to keep them. And some of the things that they recognize is that they really had to reinforce to the people that were working during this COVID-19 that number one, that the safety of these workers was of the uppermost importance to the company, to upper management or to ownership. And so what they found that was very effective is having training on their PPE that they were using, sitting down and talking to them about COVID-19 and what it meant as they performed their duties as cleaners. And they really had to reinforce to them that the company was there to support them in any way that was possible and to make their environment safe, and that they were not going to put them into an environment that was detrimental to their health. And that took a little bit of work, but it was really good to see that companies were doing that. And it's not just the big companies that already have in place a communication department. It was the mid-sized ones and even some of the smaller ones. Here in the United States, the same thing. That was one of the challenges that they had. A lot of the workers, they heard COVID-19 and all of a sudden, there's no way I'm going to go into work. But some have found that by educating them, that they felt a little bit better. And then the people, as I mentioned, that had to be laid off. And in our industry, a tremendous amount of people because of the shutdowns of many of the customers. So we have the issue already that workers are hard to find. Employee retention is a challenge always. And now we have to lay off people. And as companies started to reoccupy their buildings, some companies found that now they had to go out and recruit a new workforce. But here was the advantage that some of the companies took during the time that people were laid off. And if you like, I can go into some of the positive things that companies did to keep in touch with their employees that they had laid off.
Yeah, I mean, let's jump into that because we want to see the positive sides too. We want to see where things went right. So
sure. And it's interesting because some of the companies were very creative. For instance, there was one company and what they did initially, and it wasn't on the surface, you would think it wasn't a very big gesture, but what they did is they gave out some gift cards right away, not only to their employees but that were working, but those that had been laid off. And it wasn't a large gesture. I mean, it wasn't a lot of money, but it was just the fact that they wanted to let their people know that they were concerned for them. And then one of the outstanding things that I really thought was an excellent way to do, to keep in communication and to really demonstrate that the company cared for these people, was that they put together a sheet and they listed all the governmental agencies that were offering assistance. And they made sure that each of their laid off employees got this information. And so it wasn't just put in the mail, and that was it. It was really well organized. And the way they did it was the executive management of this particular company made a list of all the people. And they made a list, or they assigned these people to the supervisor or the direct supervisor that they had worked with while they were employed. And it was their responsibility, the responsibility of the supervisor, to make a call, reach out to these individuals, and make sure whether they had to hand deliver them or whether they had to put it on a website, email it. And they used a variety of those things. And the response that they got was very positive. And then what they did is they decided that they needed to keep in touch with these people. So again, the supervisors that they worked for were assigned the responsibility of making contact with these people every other week at the beginning of this virus. But then, depending on the situation of the individuals, it may have just been, maybe every 3 weeks or once a month. But if it was individuals that really needed that reinforcement, they reached out to them. Now, some people would say, well, that's a lot of time. Well, it definitely was an investment. And the investment paid off because the people were ready to come back to work. And when they were called, the attitude that they had towards the company was very positive because the company had demonstrated to them that they cared for them. And the other ones were that they met with groups of people on the phone. Some did it by Zoom. And they just had a session where they just talked about some of the issues that they were facing during this COVID crisis. So it was kind of like a group that could interchange their frustrations. And they found out that some had solutions to some of the problems. There were some recommendations, and it just helped the morale of those people. But that's really a demonstration of the type of industry that we are, because we always talk about that we're in a people business. And for many years, it was that frontline worker that enabled us to grow our companies that were often overlooked. And I think that during this COVID-19, it really shocked a lot of people. And so they were able to pull together. That's not saying everybody, but a good number of companies here in the United States have demonstrated. And some are late coming into the game, but they recognize the value of that. And that's okay too. So that's how keeping in touch with the people that have been laid off, the people that have been demoralized because of the job, the people that they don't have a job, yet they have a family. And at the very beginning, nobody really had any answers. But now I think I've seen some companies that it has really been good, and they've been able to retain those people. So when jobs opened up, they didn't necessarily take those jobs and then not have anything to do with the company that they had worked for. So I thought those were very positive things. But I think it was the demonstration of management and ownership to the frontline worker that really is going to pay dividends as time goes on and we get through this COVID-19 virus.
No, that's amazing, and it goes a long way to show that sense of like you belong, that community, and so that definitely helps when you have such a it's a catastrophe. It's for many people it was, it flipped our whole world upside down. And when you've got, like, your company can sweep in and say, hey, it's tough. I know it's tough, but we're here for you. And just the resources probably enabled a lot of people to just financially get through it a lot more easily. So it's incredible to know that there are so many out there who have taken that approach or getting to that approach right now. So
yeah, it's a bad situation for everybody, but I think morale has a lot to do with it. You can, if they know that they're not by themselves out there. And I give credit to all of those companies that implemented these programs for those people that they had to lay off. I always say, if you can imagine that here we are in the middle of, or the beginning of a pandemic crisis with a lot of questions with no answers, and yet you're an employer and you have to lay off these people. And it's not because of bad work. It's because of the companies, the customers suspending service because they're vacating the building. So I don't think we've had that type of training as an industry on, okay, if this happens, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So I think we've learned a lot, or
Yeah.
learned.
Well, it's impressive too because you can't train for something like this. I think the last time we had something of the scale was literally 100 years ago, and the world was a completely different place then. And I don't know that we have too many people alive from 100 years ago who could say, "Hey, this is what we did." So to see such a good shift in such an unknown situation is incredible.
Well, here's something that's interesting.
Mhm.
About several years ago, I would say um, 6, 7 years ago, maybe, or pretty close to that, companies were asking contractors, "What is your plan in case of a pandemic?" And I worked with a lot of companies that were requesting those of their service providers. But then it kind of peaked, and then after a while that went away,
Mhm.
and nothing happened. Nobody really jumped on that, and yet here we are. I mean, we never thought it would happen, but yet here we are. So,
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
but the good thing is that as an industry, we're adjusting.
Yeah.
So that's good.
No, it's amazing. It's great to see. All right, so I guess kind of getting into deeper into the communication aspects, what are some things that businesses can do specifically to take their internal communication to the next level to enhance what they're doing, or to start doing something that will actually help them reach those frontline workers?
Yeah, and it's pretty interesting. And again, people are being very creative, which is good. But here's some things that some companies are doing.
Hmm.
So you have the people. We've already talked about the people that were laid off, but what about the people that are here working and have never stopped working during this pandemic?
Hmm.
Uh, do we leave them alone? They're doing okay. Well, that's not the approach. And here's some things that companies are doing. Number one, they have some companies um, have welfare checks on their people. And what I mean by that is that somebody from upper management or middle management will reach out to the workers. Hey, how are you doing? Appreciate the work you're doing. Is everything okay? How's the family? Um, Really demonstrating a concern for them, because remember that they're working.
Hmm.
They still have the assigned work that they're going to do. And so by asking that, it really is a demonstration that the company does have a concern. And when the frontline worker feels that concern that is given to them, that means a lot. And remember, we're talking too still about employee retention.
Yeah.
People want to work with those types of companies. So that's one of the things that people have done. And again, here's some other unique things that I thought were pretty creative. So one company, and now I see more and more as I talk to different companies, have put together a committee, and they may want to call it a pandemic team or whatever it is that they're calling. But the members of this committee are perhaps a vendor that they use, um, a, a representative of upper management, supervision, and in some cases, even a frontline worker or two. And they meet, the ones that I have spoken to uh, are meeting either once a month, and some, in case, dependent on the circumstances, meet on a weekly basis. And what they talk about are uh, an overview of all the different segments of the company. It could be the frontline worker, and he says, "Look, here's some of the things that we're dealing with. People are asking about disinfection,
Hmm.
and it's interesting that right now more than ever, if a building is occupied and they see a janitor doing their work, that janitor is under the spotlight. If you can keep in mind that for a long time people have been at home watching all the news channels. These people now are experts in disinfection. They're experts in sanitation, uh, electrostatic sprayers, or whatever it is, because they saw it all on these news channels. So when they come to the work environment, they're looking to make sure that where they work is going to be safe. So this feedback from the janitors may be very good. Look, people are asking about these particular touch points. How do we incorporate it? What do we do if somebody says, did you disinfect this today? And if you didn't, why don't you? So they bring that to this committee, and then they're able to address those problems with the customer. But it also gives those frontline workers a voice. Having a vendor on this group enables the company to be updated on all the latest technologies and all the latest equipment, the processes of disinfecting and cleaning. So they're kept up to date. Having somebody from management enables management to inform the committee, here's some things that are being asked of us. And here's an interesting thing, is that disinfection, it takes a little bit more time. Logistically, there are issues, and the cost. And so what we need to do, and what a lot of companies are doing, and by means of this committee, they're actually being able to talk about customers, certain customers. What do they want? What are they asking for? Are they willing to pay it? If not, how can we adjust their cleaning schedules for them? So with this group, you have all the shareholders there, and you're able to come up with some good plans. And it's not just talking about negative, it's talking about some of the things that are happening in the accounts at night. What are some opportunities that these frontline people work here? Maybe somebody is having an issue in regards to dealing with people, with some of the workers. Some of the supervisors may be having some issues. Well, with this group, you're able to discuss those types of problems. So what does that create? It creates more of a team atmosphere. And it's not just somebody dictating, this is what you need to do, now just go out and get it done. So it's a respect that's given to that frontline worker also, that their feedback is important because they're on the front lines. And so that's been very beneficial for a lot of companies. The other thing that I think I mentioned earlier, but it's an opportunity to really provide some training. And so a lot of companies, several companies now, are bringing in those ones that were laid off, and they're running them through training sessions in regards to showing them the difference between cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting. They run through training sessions on how to use the equipment that would be used in this disinfection. They run them through training programs on the proper use and removal of PPE. So they're taking advantage of that. And they're being very creative in the things that they do. Ownership is really good when they're able to come in and sit in on a meeting like this. So this type of committee, and it could be that, like I said, the pandemic preparedness or the disinfection team, but that I found to be very beneficial. The workers like that, and it's a forum to be able to discuss certain challenges that they're having in the workplace.
No, I like that idea. And again, it comes back to when you have people talking and when you have a diverse set of input, in this case, diverse positions having to do with the company or within the company, you're going to have a higher quality of output, in this case, plans and advice and strategies coming out of this group. So,
yeah, it's making use of your people and their experience. And the owners of the company or management of the company are dealing with the customers all the time. And the customers want to know, for instance, if a building is going to be occupied and it's been vacant, well, they want to know, what are you going to do to maintain the safety of this building? So for me, I've sit in a lot of meetings of these companies. And now what I'm seeing more and more is they're more risk management people sitting in on the meeting, the safety people sitting in on the meeting. And I've sat in meetings with those people and the contractor that are cleaning the building. And I have to tell you that the knowledge that is being displayed by contractors is outstanding. I mean, they've really come to the plate and they're able to actually be the experts. And that's the opportunity that we have that maybe we never had before.
Mm-hmm.
And here's how everybody ties in together with segments of a company, of a contractor's company, is when they're able to say, this is what our people are able to do. This is what they've been trained on. So when that janitor comes back, people are looking at them in a more positive way. They're not that person that comes in and maintains our building, or they're not that invisible person that we never see, but we know they've been here because our trash is empty. It's somebody, it's a whole different perspective on that frontline worker. And that's good to see. So we have an opportunity now to really demonstrate that we are the experts in cleaning, in sanitizing and disinfecting. And here's what we're doing. So all of the programs that are being, all the creativity, all the programs that are being put together now, if you're interacting with your workers and you're getting feedback from them, if you're staying in contact with the people that you laid off. And here's another area. Some of these laid off workers, now what companies are doing is they're developing disinfecting teams. So a person that may have been laid off that was cleaning a facility, if they have the desire, they can be trained to be a part of this specialty team. And that's good because in a lot of cases, they've been brought back to work earlier. So it's really a lot of this is a work in progress. But from my perspective, not only domestically, but internationally, I see now that we're really starting to make some good positive statements on the abilities that we have as building service contractors. So that's what's good. And then I guess one other area too that I see a team effort and good communication from within is developing your disinfectant teams and then putting together a marketing process. And if you have all of your representatives of the different parts of your company and you're sitting there and you're talking about, here's what we do to disinfect a building, here's what makes us different. All of that now, if you go on websites, you have some pretty great displays of this is what we do, this is our specialty. So I think that's really good. And a lot of it is based on the feedback they get from their organization. So internal communication may not have been there in the past, but it's vital now. And this pandemic has really put us in a position where if you do not communicate with the people within your organization, you may be missing out on a lot. And you're missing out on a tremendous differentiator within your company and another.
I would agree. No, it's vital now. And now people can tell us the lifeblood of, how a company succeeds or not. So
Sure.
I think this is great. I know we're getting towards the 40-minute mark. And so I think we can wrap up here. But I did want to say, do you have any other additional notes or advice that you would like to input that we didn't touch on?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is the attitude and the approach that we take to cleaning. And if I was going to say anything is that too many organizations, and it doesn't matter what size, think that things have to be done the way they've always been done. The process of cleaning, the way we communicate with our customer, we strive to provide good service. But that's changing. The customer today is different. From a marketing, a sales and marketing standpoint, the way that the customer deals with prospective service providers is different. You have to have an online presence. The other thing is you need to look at the new technologies that are available today, because that's vital. If you're doing things the traditional way, you're not going to survive. The other thing is the training of our people is important, and the front line, of course, but also our supervision and management. That's important, because the companies that provided that training, I really feel that they had an easier transition into this COVID environment because they had some things in place already. Communication, we brag about how we communicate with our customers, but we want to brag about also how we communicate with that frontline worker. How are they able to be enthused by the direction of the company if they're never told the accomplishments that the company has made? So all of those together make a good solid team and will help a company to get through this COVID-19 pandemic. And the other thing too is listen to your customer. Don't automatically think that the customer wants something for nothing. If the customer says, I really need to have this disinfection program, and maybe they don't have as much money as they need to get a full program, we're the experts. Sit down with them and talk about their facility. Okay, instead of doing this on a daily basis, how about if we cut the frequency here, the time we save, we'll put in to a disinfectant program. That's a true partner. So strive to be a partner, a true partner, one that's looking out for your customer. And it's new for them too. And the other thing, and the last thing is they need us. I sit in a lot of meetings and they're asking questions that we as a cleaning industry have the answers to. And so that's where we want to be. We want to be the experts. We don't want to be just the people that are invisible. So that would be, I guess, what I would say to somebody trying to survive in this pandemic.
No, thank you. I think that's a great note to end on too. So what we'll do is we're going to head and put up a corresponding blog post. So everything that we've covered, we'll also have written out, and we'll link any pages that you would like to share with people and any other information. But other than that, yeah, thank you for tuning in to Business of Cleaning's episode with Ron Segura, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys next episode. Thank you.